Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us again. Welcome back to our channel. This is the Love is Healing channel, and in this channel we aim to teach you, show you, embody that love is in fact healing, that when we love ourselves we can love others better, and we can integrate, we can have more empathy, we can have open conversations, especially with those that we disagree with the most. And yeah, we aim to have respectful dialogue and open-ended questions, and just, again, building that empathy and those connections with other people, especially those that believe differently from us. Also, we focus on psychoeducation and all things trauma, spirituality, honestly, just what comes up. All right, please like, share, subscribe, and comment if you have any comments on this video. Hi everyone, welcome back. We have a special guest today. This is probably who I would consider my biggest mentee, actually. And her name is Magdalena. She's a therapist with us here at Love is Healing, LLC, and she is a shamanic Reiki master practitioner also. I would say, just kind of as a therapist, her personality is pretty gentle and subtle and supportive and kind and sweet. And I would say the people who she works with, to me, in my experience, kind of best would be men, adolescents, and young adults. Maybe that's my experience. And of course, you can speak to that too here in a bit, Magdalena. And also, just, yeah, I feel like anybody who's needing remothering, right? Support with attachment wounds and things like that, I would say too. She has some experience with eating disorders too, all under the umbrella of treating complex trauma. But I would say those are kind of her strong suits, right? That's my introduction on her. Magdalena, what would you say? What would you like to add about yourself?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Magnolia. I really appreciate the space and the time that we're able to have this kind of conversation about these topics that we'll get into. And I would definitely agree. I do enjoy those populations of adolescents, kids, and also working with men too, because that is a population that I like to learn more about. Um, and being able to work with them too in healthy spaces. So yeah, thank you so much for that. I appreciate being here.
Of course, absolutely. And y'all, this is her first YouTube video, so I'm super pumped and honored to have that. That's so cool. Yes. So today we were just kind of thinking of having a conversation on integrative health. And to sum that up a little bit, so integrative means to integrate, right? So to bring together, which I mean, that's kind of what we're all about in this channel. And at Love is Healing, right? And so just kind of to review, in social work, we talk about the biological, right? So anything that's going on with your body, essentially, the psychological, so your thoughts, your mental health, things like that, your biopsycho, social, your community, the people who support you, the people in your life that are important, and then spiritual, biopsychosocial, spiritual. So the spiritual component is really anything that you make it to be, right? Whether that's God, spirit, atheism, anything like that, anything in between. And so the integrated, so that's one piece. I would say too, tying it to shamanism, the the medicine wheel in shamanism touches on all four of those points also. And then with integrative health, that's essentially marrying the mental health with the physical health component. So that's kind of what we're discussing here a little bit today. I know that Magdalena wanted to talk a little bit with it about intuition and discernment, but I'll leave it to you, Magdalena. Go for it.
Thank you so much, Magnolia. What I have is surrounding just integrative health and the connection that it has with spirituality and just different forms of religion and how that can play a role in our mental health, physical health, and the spirituality behind it. And so with integrative health, I feel like it's important to be able to listen to your own intuition, listen to the ways of which your body is trying to tell you what it needs, And especially with all the information out there, research, books, the internet, being able to have all this information to such high capacity at your fingertips, being able to look it up, but being able to also be aware of how all of these ways of information can get to you so easily and how sick people really are nowadays in our current society. And just being able to know that, yes, there's this information, but also what works for me, what's the best for my body, and how can I do best, and also understand that and know that for myself by being able to ask yourself these questions, look within yourself to be able to get in touch with that side, be able to be intuitive with yourself. And I feel like this also plays a role in spirituality as well, because in order to be in touch with that spiritual side, whether you connect through spirituality, through yoga, through crystals, Reiki, tarot, whatever you're interested in, it's also important to be able to understand yourself in a way where you can be silent, have these moments of quietness to be able to ask yourself for your intuition. What is it that you're connecting to? Why are you connecting to it? And what do you want to get out of it? What's important?
Those moments of mindfulness, right?
Yes,
Stopping and noticing and then exploring why.
yes, absolutely. And so being able to know that for yourself while also knowing that action is also needing to take place. So in those states of mindfulness, asking yourself what actions are needing to happen in order to create the changes that you want to create, because also knowing that crystals are not going to be the only things that are going to help your healing journey, help you understand yourself more, but there needs to be action behind it also. And also trusting in the universe, in God, in spirit, whatever is you're wanting to call it, but being in direct connection with it. And by being able to be connected, you're also listening and hearing the lessons, hearing what's being said in those moments of silence, because that will be important to be in tune with yourself, right? Even with that integrative health aspect is important with yourself, the bodily energy, the subtle moments where you can sense it to really be in silence. And there's this quote that I heard that I think is really amazing and powerful. It's wise enough to ask the question, but also silent enough to hear it. So being able to ask and sit in silence to be able to hear what the message is being sent to you.
Absolutely. Thank you for all of that. I appreciate that. Yes. And so how does all of that tie into trauma, right? If we're living in, I think it was something like we do have a lot of information at our fingertips. I think that's one piece, right? So yes, we have social media and things like that, and on some level it is helpful, and we do have the internet and different things like that. That is helpful. The harmful pieces, I think, of that could be spiraling, thinking and overthinking and fixating and ruminating, all synonyms, I think, to doing all of those things, right? And maybe in the overthinking, we're not necessarily trusting our intuitions, right? Something's off. Well, Google says that it's fine. Google says that it's normal. My blood sugar's here. Well, Google says that that's within a normal range, right? What do we know about normal ranges these days, Magdalena, of like lab work and things like that?
Yeah, so the sicker our society becomes, the wider the range is normal. And so, especially nowadays, because more and more people are getting sick, those ranges are widening. And so, just because you may be normal in a lab range doesn't necessarily you're at a healthy number for your
Right.
body.
Absolutely. There's some health influencers that I follow, and then they talk about how everybody is a biochemical individual. So even if you're identical twins and things like that, still your chemistry would be different from your twin, you know?
Mm.
Things like that. And so, yeah, I think that's great. There's also with the information. It's just, it can be really saturating, right? And it can be too much. It can be overstimulating. And when things are really overstimulating, kind of touching on polyvagal theory, it can put us in that sympathetic state, which means my baseline, I'm just kind of constantly on edge and I'm kind of constantly hypervigilant, constantly anxious. So then when something makes me mad, I just flip my lid, right? Or when I get extra stimuli, my phone rings, I don't know, my doorbell rings, anything like that, then maybe I'm kind of more aggressive or something like that, because then you would be kind of going down that ladder, right? And so I would invite everyone to just be mindful, of course, of the content you're consuming. Again, I just made a video, I think, on this yesterday. Be mindful of the content that you're consuming. What are you consuming and why? Those are questions, right? How is it serving you and why? What would you like to shift, if anything, and why or why not? I think those are helpful questions that'll help you touch base with your intuition and get to your answers, right? To find your alignment. And then that a lot of things are normal too, like Magdalena was saying, or like sometimes we think that thing, I think that's one thing. Then also there's the concept of normal versus common, right? Just because it's common to, I don't know, brush your teeth with fluoride toothpaste, is it normal? Or I don't know. I can't think of something. Because it's common to to have our phones. I to have our phones with us in our pockets, right next to our organs, we'll call them, without any EMF protection. Just because that's common, does that make it okay? Is that normal? No, it's not normal to walk around radiating our reproductive organs, right? That has been linked to infertility, actually. And so, yeah, it's just kind of important to be mindful of, like, okay, this is common. Is it normal? Is this something that I align with? Again, inviting that mindfulness in, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you have anything to add to that, or no?
Yeah, I feel like this plays a role in all aspects, not only with nutrition and what we're putting in our body, but on our body and even going and buying lotions or going and grabbing even something as an everyday use of like shampoo and conditioner. I mean, anything that you can see on the shelves, a lot of these have a lot of harmful ingredients, and these are normal, useful things that we use in everyday life. Not per se, I guess, healthy or good for our bodies.
Definitely. Definitely. And we'll start making more videos on that, just as a side note. And this is not medical advice, it's just informational, and feel free to look it up, right? Why it can be harmful, things like that. Thank you, Magdalena. Then in regard to the spirituality stuff, I would say yes, with the spiritual bypassing. What is spiritual bypassing? Could you define it for us?
How spiritual bypassing, in my definition, I don't know the actual official definition, but to me would be using spirituality as a form of just allowing things to happen the way the cards are going to fall, which to some capacity is great, and having that acceptance is helpful and is useful in some cases, and then in other cases action is needed to be taken, that responsibility and ownership is needed to be had, and allowing spiritual bypassing to kind of take away that responsibility. You're not accepting that ownership, but you're putting it onto spirit, on God, on the universe, and not allowing yourself to take that ownership, therefore taking action to make changes in your life.
Yes, thank you. I would say so. And to piggyback off of that, I would say that it could also be, yes, I think an overall kind of avoidance of responsibility, right? Whether that's me taking a more passive role in my life, as you said, or even you could also justify it on the opposite end, right? I think, like, I know plenty of people who've experienced religious trauma and said, for example, like, oh yeah, there's Christians and they judge me and this and that. Yes. When people say, well, I can judge you, I can project onto you because God said it's okay, then we're justifying our actions too. And we're avoiding responsibility in that way too, right? So it's like maybe being overly passive and overly active, I would say, right? Not
Mhm.
balanced. Yes, absolutely. And then there's also an avoidance of feeling pain, right?
Mm.
And so it's said, like, I know I read this book, it's called Healing Developmental Trauma by Dr. Lawrence Heller and Dr. Aline Lapierre, right? I don't know. I could, okay, yeah, it shows up. This one, right? And sorry, you can't see the bottom. I know that one talks a lot about how people who are more prone to experiencing spiritual bypassing are people who've experienced extensive amounts of trauma and have higher levels of dissociation, right? And I guess I just wanted to mention that the dangers of that would be that we could lose touch with our relationships, with our loved ones, with our reality, even. We could experience psychosis, right? In a worst case scenario. Mm, yes. But at the same time, also spirituality can, of course, be a protective factor, right? Because like it helps us, I think, just looking at it psychologically, I think that like whoever your deities are, spirit guides, or maybe if you just believe in crystals but nothing else, like okay, whatever that is that you believe in, that serves as an attachment figure of sorts, right? So it's like, oh, by relation of extension, like you function as my mom, right? Maybe let's say Mother Earth and Father Sky or God, right? So yeah, you're like my mom and I love you and you take care of me and things like that. But I would kind of have to have like these functioning templates of like mom is healthy, mom is supportive, mom is kind, right? Whereas like Father Sky or God, that's a male figure and other deities too, right? And it's like, right, so same thing. You can guide me, you're protecting me, you're in charge, that kind of thing too, right? So that's kind of what's happening psychologically, which
Mhm.
is all kind of subconscious, right? But very much energetic, very much visceral, things like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it can be really protective in that way because I'm not alone. I'm not doing life alone. There's someone or something watching over me, right? So then suggestions for people experiencing any spiritual bypassing. On my end, I would say doing your best to create safety in your life, right? Emotional safety, physical safety, relational safety, and working through your traumas so that you continue to take that safety with you and so that it starts to become a piece of you, right? And if you're somebody who really identifies as spiritual or religious, right, then if you could find a therapist that aligns with your values or can at least hold space for you non-judgmentally, that's what I would recommend. What suggestions do you have to for anybody who's spiritually bypassing or concerned that there might be spiritually bypassing?
Yeah, I think all of those are such foundational pieces to understanding and assessing for yourself. And also, even being able to, going back to what you mentioned about the different figures that you have, whether it be Mother Nature, Father Sky, God, looking at attachment and how attachment plays a role in all of these, and the attachment style, and how that influences um, yourself being able to respect your own boundaries, respect maybe others and their boundaries, but having that awareness of the attachment and the attachment style that is predominant can, I feel like, also influence all of these ways of allowing that steadiness and all these safe spaces to also happen.
Definitely. Thank you. I feel guided in this moment to mention something. Overall, in my life, professionally and personally, I've seen people fall away from their faith systems, whatever that is, right? Due to relational trauma that they've experienced with their elders or people in charge. So, for example, like I grew up in a really Catholic place, and so I can think of so many, probably 90% of my peers who grew up Catholic and went to church and things like that, but their parents were abusive and were alcoholics and things like that. So like even though the Bible said this, and the parents were like, you need to behave the way the Bible says, there was a double standard. The parents were not in alignment. They weren't taking accountability. They were, in fact, modeling spiritual bypassing, right? On top of abuse. So then that disconnect, that lack of connection, right, with their parents is kind of what led people astray. And I can say the opposite is true for other people. I mean, I know we've heard plenty of stories of people who have ashrams and things like that, and then they're in or cults or different or spiritual places, and then it ends up being cult-like and abusive and things like that too. So somehow we ended up on my pedestal, which is pay attention, pay attention. Who are you following and why are you following them?
Mhm.
Are the biggest questions. And then I invite you to check in consistently. If something feels off, address it. Why does it feel off also? And then can I address it with this person? Great. If they're a safe person, then they're going to take accountability.
Mhm.
They're going to walk in integrity and they're going to hold space and they're going to admit to whatever wrongdoing they did, right?
Mhm.
If they're not a safe person, they're going to turn it around and blame you, or they're going to ask you all these questions or something like that. It's going to feel yucky, right?
Yeah, right.
So yeah, interesting conversation.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot more that we could get into, but yeah, I think kind of those are the basics for me. Is there anything that you'd want to close with, Magdalena?
I think even just your comment about what we consume, I think is a very big piece, especially with all of the different ways of consuming different medias, whether that be through TV, the types of movies that we watch, social media, the music that we listen to. Um, all of these influences can really impact what's being modeled and also, in a sense, what's being internalized too. And that's, I think, a very big aspect of it all that is also its own conversation to be had. But I think besides that, um, yeah, that's a big piece of it. So thank you for allowing me to share and allowing space for me to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you. I have one more final comments because you jogged something in me. With that, I love that consumption piece. I think just some words of wisdom for anybody who's in a similar boat. I know that there are, okay, so if you're into astrology, Saturn is currently in Pisces, which means that things are kind of nebulous and things like that. People are really questioning their meaning and things like that. I know that it's been conjunct to Neptune a lot of times, which things are really murky and confusing. Okay, here in the past few months and things like that. And so, yes, pay attention to what you consume. If, say, you're someone who's more on the pagan end, and then there's a lot of people, say, on your social media who are just, this is the way that it's described, not that I'm calling people this, Bible thumping bigots, right? Okay. If they're spewing hate and they're spewing hate toward you in particular, why? Why are they doing that? Who are these people? What gives them the right to do that to you? And why are you allowing it to happen? Right? On the opposite end, too, if you're someone who's Christian and maybe like experience a lot of, I don't know, hatred or something like that, too, same, like, right? Like, you should be setting boundaries and things like that. So why aren't you? Where do you need to set more boundaries and things like that? And if you're someone in the middle, say going from pagan to Christian, or going from Christian to like I need a little bit more and I'm confused, and then people are sitting there judging you a lot and things like that. I think there are several options. Either suck it up and stuff it down, which that's never ultimately healthy, right? Ignore it basically, or journal about it and things like that and figure out like why am I allowing these people to say these different things, or okay, well, who are these people who are saying these things that are making me uncomfortable? What things make me uncomfortable, and how can I stop it? How can I speak up for myself? That kind of thing, right? So boundary setting. But yeah, thank you everyone so much for watching. If there's anything in particular that you liked about this video that you want us to elaborate on, we're happy to do that. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you.
As always, thank you so much for watching. We appreciate it. Please give us a like, share, subscribe. And you can find us at loveishealingllc.com for any bookings, trainings, collaborations, things like that. We're on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, and our handle is at loveishealingllc. Take care, everyone.